There's a lot I could say about Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imavov, but what I think it essentially all boils down to is Israel Adesanya has improved, but he's always been a beast. Nassourdine is the same beast, but a different animal. And I think that is what we saw yesterday. Of course, right, Israel Adesanya, I have been saying for, at this point, eons. I don't even know when I originally made my first video discussing the fact that Israel Adesanya has a boxing problem. It is the weakest aspect of his game. His pure boxing just isn't great. Offensively, defensively, it has always left a lot to be desired, but what has allowed him to find success, even with this deficiency, is his distance management. It's his eyes, his ability to see punches coming, and his ability to move away. That's always been what does it. The one thing you can never take away from Israel Adesanya is the fact that when you went after him with punches, he would do an amazing job sliding away, getting back to range where he would jab and he would leg kick you. And his jabs and his leg kicks from range were legitimately a problem. But going into this fight, I was very, very nervous for Israel Adesanya. And to me, the big reason why is every single time a fighter fights, you learn more about them. Well, the sheer amount of film study there is on Israel Adesanya is astronomical. The amount of 5-round championship fights this guy has had, it's more than probably anybody in the UFC currently. It is absolutely no secret what Adesanya's game is, what his weaknesses are, where he's vulnerable, where he's strong. Any competent coach should be able to figure that out watching Adesanya. At this point, there are no secrets about his game. And of course, Nassourdine Imavov is a very good boxer. I think the absolute best aspect of his game is his hand speed and his combinations in close. I mean, no matter what, this was going to be a very scary fight for Israel Adesanya, but to me, I did see some advantages for him, and that certainly did play a part in the fight. For one, Nassourdine, because he does not have a particularly long reach, only 75 inches, he needs to be standing directly in front of you, essentially at all times. And this has led to him being very susceptible to a jab. I mean, Jared Cannonier landed a shit ton of jabs on him right down the middle. And of course, that is probably one of the biggest aspects of Adesanya's game. And the other thing was, his stance is very bladed, leaving him susceptible to leg kicks. And Adesanya absolutely used this to his advantage. I mean, no question. But regardless of all of this, if you touch Adesanya with the right shot, he'll crumble. I mean, just like the Twin Towers, man. And that's exactly what we saw happen. Look, again, right, it was no secret Adesanya is lacking when it comes to just boxing fundamentals all around. But Jesus Christ, the defense was poor yesterday. I mean, it was poor. It was terrible, right? I talked so much shit on Jon Jones for his boxing defense against Stipe. This sequence in particular, he has both hands completely outstretched forward, chin right up in the air. This is literally shocking. All right, this is jaw-droppingly bad, but I mean, that's exactly what Israel Adesanya did, and as soon as I saw this sequence unfold, first thing I did was go back and start watching older Israel Adesanya fights, and it's always been there. I mean, this habit, he's been doing this since forever, and now, again, it is just staring at me right in the face, but nobody has ever taken advantage of it in the past, and I think a big reason for that is Israel Adesanya typically has such a height and a reach advantage over his opponents that outstretching both of his arms the way he did was creating some distance. It was creating some range. Like, you look at this sequence against Robert Whittaker as a great example of this. Yeah, right. I mean, this isn't great. This is not good boxing fundamentals, but because he has such a height and such a reach advantage, the outstretched arms sort of maintained the range a little bit and it allowed him to stay safe. But against Imavov, who has a very unique skill set compared to anybody else Israel Adesanya has ever fought before, whose A game is exploding into the pocket with fast hands, devastating combinations, you can't do this. But Adesanya was doing it throughout the entire fight. Now, he actually did have some sequences right where Nassourdine steps in, Israel Adesanya extends both of his arms out, but he's able to bring his right hand up and actually block the shot right before it got to him. But it's just such a dangerous game. And you look at round one, again, Adesanya was doing an amazing job landing leg kicks, landing good jabs, maintaining the range. But then all of a sudden, Nassourdine explodes into the pocket. Adesanya's boxing defense is god-awful, lands the uppercut. It's not because Adesanya is washed. It's not because he's just not in his prime anymore. No. This is a technical error. This is a deficiency in skill set that has always been there, but it took somebody like Nassourdine Imavov, who is, again, a very unique opponent when it comes to pure boxing, when it comes to exploding into range, to finally truly exploit it. Again, Imavov does not throw and hope. He aims and fires right down the barrel, and when you look at that final finishing sequence, Adesanya tries to wave off of the ref in an Alex Pereira moment. Imavov just kind of steps in with a jab. Adesanya goes, and then he's standing completely still. There's no movement. He's not moving away with the shot at all. He eats it fully right on the chin, and it puts him out. And again, like I had said prior, right? It's just the nature of MMA. When a dominant fighter eventually starts losing, everybody's going to say, man, he's not in his prime, though. It's not, he used to be in his prime, but now he's not in his prime because he's losing, essentially, is I think most people's thought process. But look, the truth is, again, Adesanya looked really good in this fight. Nassourdine actually had some really good takedown entries. Again, right, we go back to my original breakdown for Adesanya versus Dricus, and the one thing I was saying in that matchup was Dricus needs to explode at Adesanya with punches. Adesanya is only going to try to slide away. He's not going to find counters. And it's that moment where you mix in the takedowns. You mix in the other attacks. That's exactly what Imavov did. You look at this first takedown sequence right here. Explodes Adesanya with punches, dips right into the takedown. It gets really deep on it. I mean, his hands are completely locked behind Adesanya. He absolutely should finish this takedown, but the defense was amazing. Again, I really don't think this fight had anything to do with Adesanya not being in his prime anymore. He just got a tendency exposed. That is essentially all it comes down to, and that's pretty much it. That is Adesanya's career laid to rest. And look, I'll be honest, yeah, I'm kind of sad about it. I'm kind of sad because I was really hoping for an Adesanya versus Khamzat fight after this one. That is what I've always been dreaming for, but I mean, that just doesn't make any sense anymore, does it? But now, I mean, what's next for Imavov? I think that an issue that he is going to seriously have in this division is the fact that, I mean, look, he fought Sean Strickland not that long ago. And he kind of got shut out in that matchup. And that's just because, again, right, Imavov's strength is boxing, exploding into range. But unfortunately, Sean Strickland, defensively, is probably the best boxer in the UFC. I don't think anybody has better defense than he does. And that's always going to be such a difficult fight for Imavov. But I do think a fight against Khamzat is interesting. To me, right, we're all just waiting to see what happens if somebody can survive that round one onslaught from him. That is, to me, the big question that is still left unanswered. And of course, Imavov is going to be way more technical than Khamzat on the feet. I mean, look, if you're getting outboxed by Kamaru Usman rounds 2 and 3 on a week's notice, Imavov is a very, very different animal. You know what I mean? And if they have a 5-round championship fight, I think rounds 3, 4, and 5 would be extremely interesting if he would be able to survive that first onslaught from him. In terms of, does Imavov stand a chance against Dricus Du Plessis? I mean, it's just so interesting because it really all comes down to Dricus' durability. I mean, he can just hang in there and absorb fucking punishment, all right? Adesanya landed so much against Dricus, just was ripping him to the body, landing these brutal body kicks and brutal leg kicks, and Dricus just didn't really seem bothered by it. Just hung in there, absorbed it all, never stopped rushing at Adesanya with strikes until he eventually finished him. Again, I think Imavov is very solid everywhere. He's very, very technical, but Upon sort of an early kind of synopsis of the division, I think he just hangs below Sean Strickland and DDP at the top. I don't think stylistically he can overcome Strickland's defense. And again, I'm just afraid that Du Plessis is just going to be a little bit too much of a man for him. You know what I mean? Just a little too much meat on that bone of DDP. You know what I'm saying? So look, it's very exciting moving forward, but, Israel Adesanya, right? I mean, fucking frozen like Elsa.